Okay, today is a bit of a spiky subject. Let's talk about global warming and climate change, okay? I know a lot of you out there are for it, a lot of you are against it, okay? But please hear me out. I'm just trying to state some facts here. You can believe whatever you want after that. That's all up to you. Now, mainstream media is full of it, okay? Social media cannot stop talking about it. Political figures around the world debate on it, celebrities are backing it, and almost on a daily basis, scientists try to bring up proof of global warming and climate change. So what is global warming? Basically, global warming is caused due to gases on the Earth's surface being released into the atmosphere, which causes what we call the greenhouse effect. Now, when the sun's energy penetrates the Earth's atmosphere, a lot of it cannot bounce back off the Earth into outer space and stays trapped due to these gases trapping them around the planet. This in turn causes temperatures to slowly and gradually rise over the years around the planet, which causes the ice caps to melt, etc., etc. But basically that's what global warming is, okay? Gases being released, trapping the sun's energy around the planet, and global temperatures continuously rising. Now, we are meant to believe that global warming is caused primarily by human activities, especially the release of carbon dioxide, not only through breathing, but also through industrial production, car exhaust fumes, and the production of cement, which releases an enormous quantity of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every year. And because of these human activities, the amount of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere causes this greenhouse effect, which causes global warming and ultimately would destroy the whole planet, okay? For a lot of people out there, it's already too late for us, okay? We cannot back down now. We're not going to survive more than 500 years, okay? Meaning your great-great-great-grandkids would not be alive because of our activities today. And people today are so caught up in it that they would judge you on the car you're driving, the amount of electricity you're using, etc., etc. The list just goes on because you're ultimately causing the destruction of the planet, okay? The polar ice caps are melting, different species disappear around the planet every day, okay? We'll talk about that in another video. But the acne problem, the obesity problem around the world, even the war in Syria, all of it was already blamed on global warming by a lot of people out there. So as you can see, climate change and global warming is a major cause for concern because according to the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering and Medicine, the atmospheric carbon dioxide levels as measured in the air are higher today than at any time during the past 800,000 years. Okay, so this could really be a big problem. Or so they want you to believe, okay? Let's quickly bust this one wide open, put people back on the right track because this is starting really to piss me off. So, is climate change a real thing? Yes, it is. The climate is always changing, even though it changes very little. I mean, I'm over 30 years old and I remember my younger days and the time I was in school and the first time I had to work on a project in regards with climate change. The climate has actually changed very little. But the climate is always changing. In fact, there hasn't been 2 years in human history that the climate was exactly the same as the previous year. So the climate is always changing. Now, is it cause for alarm? No, not really, okay? The way the media portrays global warming and exaggerates it is just laughable, okay? It's not as bad as you may think. There are a couple of groups of people working on it. Now, the first group of people that I want to talk about working on climate change are made up of scientists working mainly with and around the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, okay? These are scientists very good at their job that document all of their findings, and they found out that the recent changes in the climate are caused mainly by CO2 emissions from burning of fossil fuels such as natural gas and oil from human activities, okay? But they also say that this could eventually cause problems to the climate. They didn't say it's now. They didn't say we're entering our doomsday scenario. They said this could eventually, one day, maybe cause trouble to the atmosphere, to everything on the planet. Climate change, okay? Then there's a second group of scientists that do not agree with the first group, okay? They believe that it's not a big cause for concern, the human CO2 emissions, and that most of the factors we see in climate change and global warming are due to natural factors, okay, such as ocean variability, orbital variability, solar output, volcanism, etc., plate tectonics, and so on, okay? They do not believe, they're also very good scientists, but they do not believe that human activities are a great cause for concern for the climate. These scientists say that none of the factors I mentioned previously are fully understood, and that there is no proof that CO2 emissions are a cause for concern and that it's heating up the planet. Now, both of these groups of scientists do agree on a couple of things, though. They do agree that the levels of CO2 around the planet has been rising faster and faster, and they also believe that CO2 is a greenhouse gas, that without it life on Earth could not be possible. True as well. They also say that over the past 2 centuries, that's 200 years, the average mean temperature around the planet has risen by less than 1 degree Celsius. Okay, it's not that big a deal as the media portrays it to be. 1 degree Celsius, it's not a big change. Most people would barely notice it. And the IPCC themselves said that the long-term prediction of future climate states is not possible. You cannot predict the future of the climate, okay? The climate is always changing, and due to all of these factors I mentioned, no one can say what life on Earth would be like 50, 100, 500 years from now. Okay, so these scientists, maybe they do not agree always on everything, but these points they do actually agree on. But one other point they do actually agree on is that neither group believes that the burning of fossil fuels, that human activity releasing CO2 in the atmosphere would lead to catastrophe, okay? No one of these scientists believe it. Burning of fossil fuels, human activities would not lead to catastrophe. Okay, so no need to worry about the doomsday scenarios. We're not going to die from our carbon dioxide emissions. But since a lot of people believe in it, there is a third group of people that like to prey on those that believe in it, okay? This group is comprised mainly of politicians, environmentalists, media, and here and there a rogue scientist who doesn't really know what he's talking about when he talks about climate change, okay? That hasn't necessarily done the research, etc. Why do they prey on the people? Because it gives them what their heart most desire. Politicians debate climate change all the time because it gives them power, gets them elected, and brings in money. Environmentalists, because they have a movement for something they may or may not believe in, but it brings in money to their organization, so of course they're gonna talk about it all the time. And what about the media? Of course the media is gonna talk about global warming and climate change because it sells newspapers, etc. Okay, doomsday scenarios are selling. If you don't believe me, just go look at all the movies that portrays the end of the world that came out in the last decade and see how much money they raked in. Okay, so do not believe this third group of people. Okay, they're only there for money and power and control. They're brainwashing you. Okay, so let's talk a bit more about these different greenhouse gases. Okay, the major greenhouse gases that we have identified on the planet are water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, ozone, and a couple of others such as chlorofluorocarbons. Okay, these are the major players in the greenhouse effect. Now, man-made and natural carbon dioxide comprises about 99.4% of all greenhouse gas concentrations, according to a study made by the US Department of Energy earlier in the century. Okay, but if you include the natural additions of CO2 into the air, man-made CO2 additions comprise only about 3.2% of all the greenhouse gas concentrations. Okay, so this is really not that much. I mean, 3.2% is almost negligible if you ask me. But I do not agree completely with this study because I think methane has a higher concentration. But since the US Department of Energy is probably much more equipped and much more specialized in it than me, who am I to argue with them? But they also say that the total combined man-made greenhouse gases comprise about 3.2% 0.298% of all greenhouse gas concentrations. That's less than 3.3%, okay? It's less than 4% of everything that causes the greenhouse effect and causes global warming. Not even 4% is caused by humans. So I do not really think it's a cause for concern. Another problem I have with the study is that it completely ignores water vapor. Okay, so the same study says that if water vapor is not taken into account, human activity causes about 5.53% of the greenhouse effect. They're already contradicting their own study in the same paper, so I do not know why we would believe them, but anyway, let's go with it. And if water vapor is taken into account, human activity causes only about 0.28% of all the greenhouse effect. Now, why do they leave out water vapor? Do they do it carelessly, and then we should not believe any of their studies, because if it's done in a careless way, they did not really do their job well enough? Or do they leave it out deliberately? If they leave it out, whatever the reason, they over-exaggerate the effect of human activities on the climate by as much as 20 times. Now, water vapor consists the most significant greenhouse gas on the planet, okay? It comprises about 95% of the greenhouse effect. I think they probably leave it out because water vapor is 99.999% of natural origin. It's not human activity that causes the water vapor. Who is the major player of water evaporation from the planet? Oh, it's the sun, of course. Evaporation takes place over the oceans and continents. Over the oceans, the sun evaporates about 425,000 cubic kilometers per year, and over the continents about 71,000 cubic kilometers per year. Okay, so this gives us a total of almost 500,000 cubic kilometers of water evaporated every year from the planet just by the sun. Okay, it's natural phenomenon. So there you have it. Our carbon footprint as humans on the planet isn't that big a deal. Okay, it's so much insignificantly small that you can almost just forget about it. The media just blows it completely out of proportion. Okay, most of the greenhouse gases and the greenhouse effect on the planet is caused by naturally occurring water vapor. Okay, it's not human activity. But let's go on. Let's talk about this carbon dioxide release from human activity. Okay, the major releases of carbon dioxide from human activity comes from the burning of fossil fuels and the production of cement. Different studies have shown that humans emit about 33.2 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every year, okay, from the burning of fossil fuels. This is a study done in 2011 by the IPCC. Now, if you account for all the natural sources emitting carbon dioxide, okay, the major one is the ocean atmosphere exchange, then there's plant and animal respiration, soil respiration and decomposition, and volcanic activities. Okay, it's not a lot, but ocean atmosphere exchange is just about 330 billion tons of carbon dioxide emissions, and plant and animal respiration 220 billion tons, soil respiration and decomposition 220 billion tons as well, and volcanic eruptions 0.15 billion tons. Okay, if you add all of that up, it accounts to about 770 billion tons of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere through natural sources. Okay, and now from the same studies from the IPCC, if you take the human activities and divide it by the sources of carbon dioxide produced naturally, we only account for 4.3% of the carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. So stop freaking out about us destroying this planet. Okay, so what about the polar ice caps melting? Yes, ice melts, and it can melt pretty fast, and according to NASA scientists, it's melting faster than ever before. In fact, on March 24th, the Arctic sea ice extent peaked at 5.607 million square miles, or 14.52 million square kilometers. This is a new record low winter maximum extent, according to NASA. Okay, so yes, they say the Arctic Circle has less ice than ever. It's melting faster than ever due to human activities. So yes, but what they don't tell you is that from 2012 to 2014 in Antarctica, the ice levels reached a new record amount. Okay, so the Arctic Circle is shrinking, true. Okay, it's growing also every year, etc. Okay, but they take the averages. But Antarctica is actually growing, so there's not that much ice actually disappearing from the planet. And what about the ocean's level rising then? Is it really rising? Yes, but it's not rising at an accelerating rate than before. Actually, two recent papers published, one by the Global and Planetary Change from China in January 14 and one by the US Coastal Engineering in May 2013, actually showed that the sea levels are rising at a slower pace than before. So are things really getting worse for the planet than before because of human activities and global warming? No, okay, it's not. The facts just don't support it. The hurricanes, droughts, everything went down, okay, typhoons, tropical storms, etc. The average death rate went down around the planet. Actually, if you want to look at a study from the Oxford University database for death rates from floods, extreme temperatures, droughts and storms, in the 1900s, more than 130 people died every year from natural disasters. Now, throughout last century, that number dropped by 97% to less than 4 people dying per year from natural disasters in the early 2010s. Okay, so the facts just don't support it. I know the media wants to get us into this frenzy of it's doomsday. Okay, Bill Nye, everybody who's sponsoring them. The facts just don't support what they're thinking. Okay, some of them are very smart people, etc., but they do make mistakes and they do get brainwashed and they do try to brainwash us. It's just not true. The facts don't support what they're saying. Does that mean I support carbon fuel emissions and pollution from burning of fossil fuels, etc.? No, I am all for Teslas and green energy and electric vehicles, etc. The simple fact for that is that I lived in one of the most polluted cities in the world once upon a time, and when I came back from town, I had to wash my hair and the water turned black because of all the pollution. So I do think green energy, electric vehicles, etc. is a good idea, but I do not agree with the fact that the media is trying to shove down our throats the effect that global warming has on the planet, and that's all due to human activities. Okay, so I hear you ask, William, why does the media lie to us? Why do politicians say that climate change is such a bad thing? Why do environmentalists say that our human activities are destroying the planet when actually it's not? It's all a game of money and power, okay? The politicians wants to control the media, the environmentalists wants to control the media, because if you can control the media, you control the masses. Or as stated by George Orwell, the people will believe whatever the media tells them they should believe, okay? So that's it. That's the whole reason behind it, money and power. And you will ask me then, why do they tell a lie? Don't they have a conscience? Well, probably not. But just remember, if you tell a lie big enough and you keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. Or as Adolf Hitler said, make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they will believe it. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next video.